saw it.
After last time, you know.
I don't think there's anything creepier than what I saw upstairs.
Oh, alright. Jade has made her appearance. Odie has made his appearance.
Let's get the show on the road.
It is time. So just to catch everybody up, our protagonist has invited Beverly, the old woman he finds to be his mother figure at this point in time, and Beverly's caretaker nurse named Karen. He and Karen seem to be hitting it off very well, and they're out in the kitchen in the morning, and they're talking at this point in time. I will read a paragraph above, so we can further help out the continuity of this if you were there the last 2 weeks ago.
So, you know what? I'll text you, Maria.
Once again, all that we ask is that you remain respectful for the other people that are here to enjoy the story. Minor comments are always okay. Let's just avoid conversations. Everybody good with that?
Definitely.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Good to hear, good to hear. Okay. We're going to get into it now after one last drink of bourbon. Okay. How much land is it? Karen asked. Nearly 500 acres, over a mile of road frontage and well over half a mile deep. We've even got a creek on it, but I haven't been down there yet. Beverly had been quiet, but seemed to wake up a bit. You're doing a wonderful thing here, Jack. This place seems so sad, so forlorn, and you've managed to breathe life back into it. It was a shame for us to let it go so. You've been here before then? Twice. A long time ago. Once as a young girl for my uncle's wedding. It was amazing, so big, so beautiful. It was old even then. He restored it for his wife, who was from Philadelphia. Then, years later, after he passed away, I came out once to see it after I'd inherited it. I couldn't stand to be here. It was so dreary and gloomy. They'd only lived in it for a while, or a little over a year, when the fire happened. Uncle Donald was out of town. Aunt Mary and little Elizabeth were trapped on the top floor nursery and couldn't get out. When the volunteer fire department showed up, they found them dead outside the house. She jumped from a window rather than burn. Aunt Mary was still holding Elizabeth. It destroyed Uncle Donald when he found out. He was never the same. Never got remarried, not that he gave up on women. He was a black sheep for a while, leaving a series of bastards in his wake. Great gossip for the family. But I could never feel anything but sorry for him. He left the place as it was, refusing to sell it or fix it. It sat here empty for at least 75 years now. Such a shame. That's so sad, Karen exclaimed at the end. It is, but even sad stories can have happy endings. I think Jack is just the man to make this a happy place once again. He certainly made a wonderful start of it. We didn't last much past that. Karen put Beverly to bed while I cleaned up a bit, and she joined me in the living room. I'm sorry I didn't know you were coming. I would have bought another bed. You can sleep in my room. I'll take the couch, I offered. I'll be fine on the couch. That way I'll hear if Bev needs me in the night. Besides, I don't think you'd fit on the couch. She had me there. She was small, only about 5'2", and I'm near 6'1". She had a better chance of squeezing in than I did. I gave her some blankets and a pillow off my bed and left her. Thanks for coming. She seems more comfortable around you. She came over to me and pulled me down for a kiss on the cheek. She's more alive than I've ever seen her. It's you and your project filling her with joy. You're such a good man, Jack. It's been good for both of us. Good night, Karen. Night, Jack. Sweet dreams. I loved my home, but it was doing weird things to my brain. Once again, I woke in the night and my door was open. I got up and checked on the ladies, both sleeping soundly. I closed the door firmly, determined that I would do something about that when my company was gone, and tried to get back to sleep. I was restless. The sounds of the house weren't helping. I heard a regular creaking noise and sat up in bed to see my rocking chair rocking back and forth. While I was staring at it, it slowly stopped moving, making me wonder if I'd been seeing things. Maybe a draft from the fireplace. Weird. Lying back down, I felt my need arise again. I wasn't at an age where I felt I'd have to relieve myself daily. I suspect it had something to do with the young lady sleeping on my couch. Either way, I was feeling horny and my rod was already at half staff. I closed my eyes, casually playing with myself while I drifted in that space between half awake and half asleep. My consciousness was slipping away, but the feeling below my waist was intensifying. My mind was playing tricks with me, and I thought I felt somebody settling onto the bed. I opened my eyes and glanced at the empty bed beside me, and at the closed door to my room. Nothing, just door shut, just the empty house messing with me. Looking down, I was hard as a rock, and the crown was bright red as if one on the verge of coming. I settled back down, mocking myself for my behavior, and made an effort to finish what I'd started. I stroked myself firmly, letting the cool air caress the sensitive head, which was feeling incredible. When I could hold back no longer, I released, pumping hard until the throbbing stopped. Looking down, I was surprised to see how little I'd come. Just a little stickiness on the head and dripping down my hand. Nothing like the torrent from the night before. I guess that in spite of the intensity of it, I wasn't in the same recovery mode as I'd been in a teenager. As a teenager, not in a teenager. Let's not mess that one up. I awoke to the smell
As long as she's an 18-year-old teenager.
That's fair. That's pretty fair. I awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon. I breathed deep, stretching. It smelled so good, so right. I was cold, and I found I'd kicked off the covers in the night, and I was lying there with an embarrassing hard-on. I threw on some pajamas in deference to my guests, added a heavy terry cloth robe in order to hide my condition down below, and made my appearance. Karen laughed when she saw me. I thought that might wake you, sleepyhead. Why don't you wash up and then you can set the table? Bev was on the front porch, enjoying the early morning. I went out and greeted her, leaning down and kissing her on the cheek. Good morning, beautiful. She giggled and swatted at me. I am immune to flattery, young man. Just stating the truth. Having you two here makes everything so perfect. The house seems like a home. It's nice, she sighed. I'd almost forgotten. I'm gonna go clean up now. Breakfast will be ready in a few minutes. Thank you. Now run along. A grown man in a robe and pajamas? What is this world coming to? I went as fast as I could and was setting the table in record time. Karen was laying out scrambled eggs, toast, pancakes, bacon. A veritable feast. I got my knuckles smacked for pilfering a piece of the crispy, thick-cut meat candy. Wait your turn, bucko. Why don't you bring in Bev and be careful? She's cranky this morning. Who are you talking about? She's the sweetest, kindest thing. She rolled her eyes at me, an ability she'd perfected. Go on now before it gets cold. I wheeled Beverly in and sat her at the head of the table. We consumed our feast, and I pled no contest to the claim I ate more than half by myself. I asked what they wanted to do, and Beverly made it clear she planned to relax on the porch. Karen was happy enough to explore the area and see the sealed-off upstairs. After breakfast, we set Bev up outside with a table and a pot of tea. That woman loved her tea. I also made sure she had her cell phone, which miraculously had reasonable reception where we were. Then Karen and I dressed for hiking and decided to explore the woods a bit around the place. It was nice, walking and chatting with her, exchanging bits of our backgrounds and a love for the outdoors. We made a series of small forays, returning to the house regularly to check on Bev. Bev was enjoying a book and the fresh air, and shooed us away each time we returned. If you don't leave me alone for at least an hour, I swear I won't be responsible for my actions, she finally announced, giving us marching orders. We decided to hike down to the road and back, and I was surprised to find myself getting hungry after all the walking. I pointed out several of different types of trees to Karen, who picked up on the differences quickly, pointing out various specimens on our return hike. What did she charge you for this, if you don't mind me asking? She's notoriously stingy, and it must have cost a pretty penny. Do you come from money? Money? I came from foster homes, 6 of them growing up. No, I don't come from money. I didn't realize quite how large the property was, and I was hoping to just buy the house and access to it, but she signed over the whole place. Now you've got me curious. What was it, the lotto? Did you cash in on one of those internet startups? Spill. I laughed. I never got to make an offer. She sold it to me for $1. That stopped her in her tracks. $1? But that's crazy. That's what I said, but her lawyer backed her on it. The only condition was that I kept her up to date on the progress, which I gladly would have done anyway. She started walking again, shaking her head. Old Bev is so full of surprises, isn't she? We walked along in silence for a bit. You can just come in, it's open. We walked along in silence for a bit, before she spoke up again. Best deal she ever made. How's that? She was wasting away. We thought she'd pretty much given up on life, and then you came along. She could talk of nothing else each day except what you were working on and how the house was coming. She was a delight to be with after every one of your phone calls. I've known her for several years and have never seen her happier. She deserves a little happiness. She's a good soul. It's been good for me, too. It's nice to have someone to share this with. She's the closest to family I've ever had, and I've known her for maybe 7 months. Hard to believe. It is hard to believe. Hard to believe you don't have someone to share this with, no special someone in your life. And my own fault. Too driven to get through college, working and studying, too focused on success at business, paying off my loans, working 2 jobs for 3 long years. Too fixated on this house for the last couple of years, I wouldn't have been good company. Thinking of settling down a bit now? I laughed. Not for a while. Everything I have is tied up in the house. I'm broke, and I'll have to work hard to scrape together the next $100,000 it'll take to finish this place the way I want it. No, I think I'll be busy a little while longer. She skipped to the side of the road and returned with one of the last fall wildflowers. You had to stop and smell the roses occasionally. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. She smelled the flower and held it to my nose.
Automatic gunfire.
Well, who's gotta go? Don't point at me. Was that a call for it or just outside the house?
No, just outside the house.
Oh, that's
What?
not good. We'll pause for a moment.
Your house is a target.
I don't know why. I don't do anything but make people pancakes, get married, and read erotic horror.
I know, you don't deserve it.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
I'd recommend we stay inside the house for now, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm staying in.
Probably a good idea. We're safer in here than we are out there.
Alright.
Unless you're Willow.
Who
Well,
trips on
we'll
the
let them
couch?
do their job, you know. Oh, I didn't see Ty and Willow come in.
That's here.
Didn't see
Yeah,
Ty
we're
or
trying to
Willow
be
come
quiet.
in. Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Hey, girl.
We didn't have time to change, but we got off duty.
Appreciated.
Yeah, all of the PD is off duty, so no one to secure scenes before responding to them. So
What do you want? Okay, I followed you.
We'll
Oh,
take
you
a
want
moment.
hug? Is that what you want? Huggy. There you go. Huggy.
Oh.
Okay. I don't see anything.
Got the flashlight. He's gonna be a hero.
I think we're good for now.
What's up, London?
I think we'll settle back in. Some people, you just don't know the rhyme or reason.
Someone just wanted to ruin the fun.
Someone always does. It's just good. Not, I was about to say clean, let's be real. It's good
Oh
fun.
my goodness. Holy smokes.
Good clean fun. Is that what you're gonna say?
My friends, hello.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
Oh hey.
All right, let's see where I was.
Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, Ramon's just kind of coasting around the house, isn't he? All right.
Craig, I'd say, but I do have to head back to the hotel.
All right, we got the all clear. We're gonna keep on moving as soon as they get back in here, because I mean, they're helping us out. Least we can do is make sure they're back for the story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, area's clear. Sorry. It was off to the northeast there.
Good to
I need
hear.
go
Why don't
check
you
it out.
settle back in? Appreciate the help.
Just kind of linger here by the
It's
door.
alright if I take seat on the couch over there? It's alright?
Yeah, are Brand Maria coming back?
On their way now.
All right. That corner spot right there, I believe, is Brand and Maria's. That's Nope, I think they're gonna stick to a different post. All yours, buddy. Sorry.
Okay.
My only wish is that Reggie could have been here.
You me
Where
both.
is Reggie, man? What happened to poor Reggie?
Hey, man, busy guy.
Is he doing the games in the dice game?
Oh, you mean Dungeons and Dragons?
Believe
No,
that
I
or
don't
computer
know.
games?
Yeah, he's probably into
Cat
some
and
computer
hide
game.
All right, settle in. We're gonna keep on chugging. She skipped to the side of the road and returned with one of the last fall wildflowers. You've got to stop and smell the roses occasionally. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. She smelled the flower and held it to my nose. When I went to smell it, she pushed it in my face and took off running up the road, laughing. I caught her after a few short ways and grabbed her, swinging her off the ground. Dull boy, you're a troublemaker, aren't you? She struggled in my arms for a second, then twisted towards me. I was shocked when she gave me a quick kiss, and almost fell when I released her. Impertinent boy, I'm gonna tell Bev how you manhandled me. She was skipping up the road backwards, wagging her finger at me. I jogged up next to her. Do it and I'll tell her you kissed me. You're rotten. I did no such thing. You kissed me. Keep it up, devil girl, and I'll do it again. She took off running. You have to catch me first. Ornery thing. Karen wasn't a kid. I'd guess early 30s. Probably had me by a couple of years. But I couldn't help smile at her playful antics. She had a full figure, and when she ran, any red-blooded man would recognize how womanly that figure was. With a narrow waist, wide, full hips, and tapered legs. Definitely worth catching. Catch her I did, and when she turned to me, I leaned down and kissed her. Longer this time. She came into my arms, hugging me, returning my kiss. She pulled away, catching my hand in hers. Okay, Romeo, I won't tell if you don't. Deal? I was still surprised at my own actions. It took me a few seconds to come to grips with myself. I gave her hand a squeeze. Deal. I was nearly 30 years old and felt like I was 15 all over again, holding hands with a girl at a skating rink, going around and around in circles, never wanting the evening to end. Alas, at the end of the road, she dropped my hand and jogged up to the house. How's it going, cranky puss? Where have you two been, leaving me alone up here for hours on end? You're just in time. If you'll help me to the restroom, I won't embarrass myself. I checked the time. We'd been gone 55 minutes. Karen leaned down and gave her a hug. I'm sorry, sweetie. We lost track of time. Let's get you inside. Beverly reached up and patted her hand as she was wheeled indoors. So long as you two had a nice time. He's a handful, but it was nice. After lunch, Bev took a nap, and I opened up the top floors and showed Karen around. She was suitably impressed with the open layout and the work done so far. The third floor was a little sparser, with the floor and ceiling unfinished, and I left it completely open. She even wanted to see the attic, so we headed up the last narrow stairwell, and she got her wish. Back on the third floor, she walked around the room. I wonder which window it was. I hadn't thought about it, but gave it some consideration. It looked like the worst of the fire was in the front of the house. It was probably one of the rear windows. She had stopped at a single window on the east side of the house. I don't think so. I think it was this one. Really? Why? I don't know. I just do. She shivered. Can we go back down now? Of course. Back on the main floor, she asked me what my next project was going to be. I'm going to start on the second floor, room by room, and when that's done, I'll get going on the top floor. I'll probably run the wiring myself, then bring in an electrician to sign it off. I'm still not too comfortable with plumbing. I guess I'll wait for the spring to bring my plumber Charlie in to finish that up. Maybe I'll be able to afford it by then. You've got your work cut out for you, that's for sure. Yeah, but, I enjoy doing it. It makes me happy to see how slowly it comes together. The house feels more alive with every board I lay, every nail I drive. Sometimes I forget I need to sleep and work long into the night. That's good. You're right about the house. It's like it's alive, watching us, while it slowly heals under your care. I laughed. I don't mean alive like living, just, alive. She just shrugged. I don't know what I'm thinking. At least it seems friendly for the most part. For me, I'm surprised how cozy the downstairs feels with all that stone and open space. It's nice. You've made it that way. She wandered away from me and went to Bev, who was awake and letting us know it. I had opened a few of the windows to let the air in and walked around partially closing them, as the day cooled a bit. I still loved the fresh air and would take it hands down over the muggy city atmosphere. Being a couple 100 feet higher than the surrounding area appeared to help out a lot. Bev looked good, her cheeks pinking up, her eyes bright. It's a different world up here, a different time. You can almost forget all the bad things going on elsewhere, she said. Karen agreed. No doubt. I could be anywhere, not an hour and a half away from D.C. We've talked so much about your plans for the house. What are you planning for outdoors? Beverly asked.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Ooh.
My goodness. It twitches.
Just another Sunday night.
Apparently.
I hadn't given it much thought. I wouldn't mind having a nice garden up here someday. I've also thought about clearing a few more trees off the southeast side, From the roof, you can see for miles in that direction. If I opened it up, I could look out from the porch and see nothing but trees and farms almost to the river. To the south and west, I'd like to leave them as they are, blocking the view and the sound of the highway. Karen liked that idea, and I found myself interested in her opinion.
Yeah, that.
Okay, have you thought about clearing the area around the huge oak tree to the northeast? It could be so picturesque. Maybe put a bench underneath it? Hadn't thought about it, but it would be too tough to do. A couple of days' work? Oh, sorry, it wouldn't be too tough to do. Okay, that's good. A couple of days' work, and I could always use a wood. Can I see this tree? Beverly asked. I'd be hard-pressed to ever say no to her. We took her out and gave her a tour of the area, as much as we could within her transport limitations. The old oak was huge and had successfully held its own against the encroaching wild. The lowest branches could have been trees on their own, stretching out sideways, fighting for space. In some ways, the tree was much like the house, standing strong and solitary, taking whatever time and nature threw at it and weathering it all. Bev asked to take a break under the tree, and we parked her there. While we sat on the ground nearby, we talked about her past, her childhood, what the country was like in the 30s and 40s. She had been in love, married young, and her husband of 8 months joined the Nascent? I'm not sure what Nascent is. Maybe someone can help me out. Army Air Forces after Pearl Harbor. He died over the skies of Europe and she'd never married again. It wasn't for lack of trying. I met some wonderful men, but they always dimmed in comparison to my Bill. I led an exciting life, but it was often lonely. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I understood her feelings. I'd grown up alone and figured it was part of life. Even the few relationships I'd shared did little to ameliorate my feelings of isolation. In truth, the odd relationship I had with Beverly was the one thing in the last half-dozen years that kept my loneliness at bay. I reached my hand over and placed it on her knee. I hope you're not feeling too lonely. I'd like to think that we'd be friends for a long time. She smiled, patting my hand. I'd like that. The last several months have been very nice, and this weekend has been wonderful. I'm so glad I let you talk me into coming. Karen added her 2 cents. Ditto to that. This has been a great break. I can't tell you how happy I am decided to share it with me. We broke up our little party as the day slipped away. We rolled Beverly back in the house and cranked up the fireplaces. Karen took over the kitchen. Anything in the refrigerator off limits? She asked. Hardly. Everything's fair game. If you need anything that's not in there, it's about 40 minutes round trip to hit the store. I think I can manage with what you've stocked. You've got enough food in here to feed an army. Any special requests, Bev? Beverly shook her head. Surprise me and don't hold back. No diet tonight. I was happy enough to sit back and chat with Bev while Karen took care of the dinner. It felt decadent, letting her do the work while I took it easy. It was a feeling I could get used to. The aroma of meat cooking and olive oil and garlic was combating the fresh smell of the outdoors, where it was doing some serious ass-kicking, and even putting up a decent defense against the fragrant fires burning freely in all 4 fireplaces. So different from my antiseptic workplace and the stench of the city. Beverly was watching me as I inhaled deeply. I know. She closed her eyes and breathed as deeply as she could. It's great to be able to draw a line between yourself and the rat race. Amen to that. I was asking her about her extended family, which she had casually mentioned earlier. No, nobody very close. Some distant children and grandchildren of my cousins. Haven't heard from any of them in years. My cousin Angela was the last to stay in touch. I felt a little something for all of them in my will. Kind of spiteful. Just enough to let them know I was there, and if they look into it, they'll see a bunch of charities getting what might have been theirs. If they'd cared enough, a phone call or even a Christmas card would have been nice. I guess I shouldn't expect so much. Nobody writes anymore. It's email this, Facebook that, and twiddle notes, and just blabbing your life and personal affairs of the world and never really connecting. I sometimes think I've lived just a little too long. I shook my head. I know it might sound selfish, but I hope you live many more years, and come and visit as often as possible. You bring the house alive. She laughed softly. It's sweet of you to say so, Jack, but it's the young girl in the kitchen livening this place up. Hardly. She's a guest, and nice to have around, but as far as I'm concerned, you're family. At least the closest I've ever had. She reached out and held my hand, squeezing it softly. I was getting all mushy. Too much time away from the big tools. I needed to go out there and fell a tree, get my testosterone going again. I see some individuals have left.
Mm-hmm.
Before I could get to maudlin, Karen called me from the kitchen. All right, slacker, why don't you drag your cute butt in here and set the table? Dinner's only a few minutes away. Cute butt? The woman was delusional. I set about getting the table ready, peeking at Karen's culinary effort, a simple Italian dinner. She had meatballs, meat sauce, spaghetti bruschetta, and was browning some Italian sausage. I hoped she'd cook a lot. It smelled divine. Dinner tasted even better than it smelled, and I stuffed myself to the point of bursting. Beverly couldn't praise Karen enough on all she'd pulled together, and I think she was getting embarrassed from all the compliments. Come on, Bev, it's just spaghetti and meatballs, no big deal. Best I've eaten in ages, I managed to blurt out between bites of sausage. That, I believe. You eat like a starving lumberjack, Karen laughed. Hers was a strong, throaty laugh, and I liked the sound of it a lot. I'd have to see what I could do to make her laugh more often. Hey, I'm only trying to make you feel appreciated. Wouldn't want any of this to go to waste. If I ate like that, you'd have to roll me away from the table without the benefit of a fancy chair like Bev had. More like the Violet and Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Hey, look, Violet. So if I squeezed you, I'd get blueberry juice?
Excuse me. I mean, I don't know
Hello?
how to answer that.
I heard an excuse me. You're potentially excused? Okay. Well, I guess you'll just have to try it and see what you get, she shot back. She had a devilish look in her eye that had me blushing. Karen, don't tease the boy. I don't think he's been around as much womanhood in the month of Sunday. I hear it, but I don't believe it. I bet he's a heartbreaker in disguise, a wolf in lumberjack's clothing. After dinner, I cleaned up, fair's fair, while the ladies enjoyed their coffee and tea. We tried our hand at hearts for a while, and I got to hear a little bit about Karen's past. She'd married young, no kids, and it had fallen apart early. She'd gone back to school for her RN and worked for a couple of years in a large hospital before she got tired of working long hours and lousy shifts. She'd then spent another couple of years as a traveling nurse, seeing the world before she got tired of the frequent travel and turned to the upscale nursing home where Beverly was. She's the best in our place, no doubt about it, Beverly said. It took some real finagling on my part to get her away from here for this trip. Hell, Bev, you and Weird John are the only things that keep me in that place. I got to hear about Weird John, the conspiracy nut, and his dealings with aliens and UFOs, as well as his secret government background, which gave him an encyclopedic knowledge of the world, at least post-World War II, pre-80s version. They had me almost rolling on the floor, hearing some of his escapades, but I should have been paying more attention to the cards. The ladies were teaming up against me, and I was getting whipped. We were playing for pennies, and I was already $6 in the hole. We bundled up Beverly in a blanket and retreated to the porch, where I indulged a small scotch and a cigar, with the ladies' permission. Man after my own heart. I wouldn't have taken you for a cigar smoker, Bev observed. It's pretty rare, maybe a half dozen a year, but this seems as good an occasion as any, breaking in my new porch. We enjoyed the crisp, cool evening air. I don't think I'd ever opened up to anyone as much as I did with those two. It was just so easy, so comfortable, like I'd known them for years. My childhood had not been a happy one, and it wasn't something I ever talked about, but between the two of them, they managed to squeeze most of my past out of me. It's hard to picture you as a delinquent, Karen remarked. Yeah, my counselors told me I was just trying to get attention. Luckily, I got tired of the schooling and detention and joined the Army at 17. 4 years as a ranger straightened me up, and Uncle Sam paid for me to get a degree. Took less than 3 years. Turned out I wasn't quite as dumb as I'd been led to believe. Bev looked at me as like I'd grown a second head. Army? You're full of surprises, aren't you? It's not for everybody, but it was good for me. I love being a ranger, belonging to something where my past didn't matter beans. Do your job, keep your nose clean, be willing to take a lot of crap the first year, and it's not a bad gig. I made some real friends for the first time in my life. Thought about making a career of it, but I still felt like I was missing out on something. See you, Willow. See you, Ty.
Yeah, we just have an early morning and I didn't want to interrupt.
All good. Have a good night.
Night.
Have a good night.
Thanks for saving us.
I took a
No
long
problem.
puff,
Too.
playing at blowing smoke rings. I always felt like an outsider, a transient, never fitting in, until I stood in front of the house. From that moment, I knew absolutely, without a doubt, knew where I belonged and what my purpose was. I'm lucky. I doubt 1 in 1,000 people get to follow their dream with a purpose. Turning to Bev, I took her cool hand in mine. I'll never be able to thank you enough for giving me this chance. It would have killed me if I hadn't been able to do this. You need to know this is the kindest, most generous thing anyone has ever done for me. Ever could do. I'll never be able to repay you. Bev squeezed my hand, smiling gently. Don't be foolish, Jack. You gave me my life back. Finish restoring the old girl and we'll call it even. We chatted a bit more, about nothing much. It didn't matter. Sitting on that porch with them was about as good as it gets. Nearly 30 years old, and I finally understood what it was to be content. To have a family, to belong. Bev reminded us it was getting late, and I gave her a hug and a kiss on the cheek while Karen settled her in. I moved to the swinging bench I'd installed, taking the blanket and the last couple of inches of cigar with me. I told myself it was just getting more comfortable, but deep down I'd hoped that Karen would respond to the invitation. I needn't have worried. When she walked out to the porch, she glanced at my empty chair and then looked over and found me on the porch swing. She smiled as she walked over and I lifted the blanket at invitation. Karen settled in next to me, nuzzling up close as I pulled the blanket over her. How is she? Exhausted, but ridiculously happy. She looks better than she has in ages. I suspect the fresh air and good company has a lot to do with it. I imagine the meals aren't hurting. I haven't eaten this well in, heck, I can't remember how long it's been, maybe ever. I imagine the meals aren't hurting. I haven't eaten this well in, heck, I can't remember, double line, I got distracted by something. I maneuvered an arm around her shoulders and hugged her close. Don't think that way. Your presence here is a delightful surprise. I can't believe how easy you are to be around. It's like I've known you for years. She giggled. It seems like I've known you for months, and you know, you're all she talks about. If I had to sit through that video of the house one more time, I think I'd have done something rash. Yet all I knew of you was that voice of yours, your words, and your work on the place. In the future, you might want to figure out a way to get yourself in some of the pictures. You're nothing like I pictured. Oh, really? And how did you imagine me? Shorter, rounder, older, balder. Ouch, is that what I sound like? I guess old Bev didn't paint a very flattering picture of me. But she did. I mean, according to her, you were some Greek god fallen to earth, or maybe a Hercules, half god, half man, able to undertake any task, no matter how impossible. I figured it for hyperbole. I mean, really? Tall, dark, and handsome? Keeps his promises to an old woman half a country away, restoring a mansion from scratch with a little more than desire and a Swiss Army knife? Come on. I had to laugh. I'll have you know my Swiss Army knife is the deluxe edition. She giggled along with me, and we settled into a comfortable silence for a while. Jack? I answered quietly, realizing I'd been halfway to falling asleep. I know I was a little silly on our hike today, maybe even a bit brazen. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm not trying to come on strong, but it's just been such a delightful couple of days. I gave her another hug, or tried to, realizing my arm was falling asleep. I loved every minute of it. It's been nothing but work for me for too long now. Your attitude is contagious. What is that? Sounded like someone was getting beaten.
Everything all right, man? I saw somebody with weapon back in corner. I look out left eye here.
That's probably some of our fine law enforcement personnel.
I certainly hope so.
Ensuring that we are not all robbed and the bride and groom kidnapped again, and yeah, the whole debacle.
That was the last time we did this.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Sorry, I know I was a little silly on our hike today, maybe even a bit brazen. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm not trying to come on strong, but it's just been such a delightful couple of days. I gave her another hug, or tried to, realizing my arm was falling asleep. I loved every minute of it. It's been nothing but work for me for too long now. Your attitude is contagious. I haven't been this happy in a long, long time. I struggled to move my arm a little to restore the circulation, but she made it easy for me by turning sideways and lying down in my lap. I'm glad. I know our time is short and I may never see you again, but as silly as it seems, I'm having the time of my life here with you. She surprised me by taking my hand, which was resting on her belly, and moving it up to her breast. It filled my hand nicely, and I gave it a gentle squeeze. She closed her eyes, and I stroked her hair while I caressed her. I felt myself hardening, embarrassed that my erection would be pushing against her head. She just smiled a little and turned her face towards my stomach, rubbing her cheek against my hardness. She whispered, "Is that for me?" "You're driving me crazy," I confessed. "Little old me, why? I'm just lying here doing nothing." Her exaggerated southern drawl was a fuel to the fire. "And you're doing it incredibly well." She finally opened her eyes, and I could see I'd lit a fire inside her. "I think it's time for bed, shall we?" I closed the door to my room quietly, nervously. She was sitting on the bed, observing. "I have to admit I feel a little awkward with Bev right next door," I said. She gave me a knowing smile. "I understand, but believe me, she'd approve. Hell, she'd eagerly take my place if the excitement wouldn't kill her." We undressed each other quietly, slowly, taking the time to get acquainted with each other's bodies. When I had felt her naked, I pulled her into my arms and gave her the kiss I'd been thinking about all afternoon. She molded herself to me and kissed me deeply, completely. I was mesmerized. We climbed into my bed, and it was like we were old lovers. The awkwardness was gone, and we'd spent an eternity just getting comfortable with each other. When she went down on me, I had to pull the covers back to watch, carefully ensuring they still covered her, keeping her warm. It was a delightful, intimate act. She wasn't working to get me off. She was just enjoying herself, playfully familiarizing herself with my most private of parts, occasionally looking up to bask in my adoration. "Howdy." Then she was climbing on top of me, sliding my hardness inside of her. She sighed as she settled onto it, taking my full length. God, it's so nice, so hard, so smooth, so perfect, like its owner in so many ways. She had me blushing, surprising for the intimate position we were in. Believe me, whatever you're feeling can't hold a candle next to what I've got going on here. You are amazing. She ceased her rocking and laid down on my body, while my hand caressed her bare back down to her delightfully full ass. It's nice to hear. I was worried I might not even remember how to do this. It's been a while. "You needn't have worried," I assured her, holding her butt while I thrust into her slowly and steadily. "You're incredible. God's truth. I can't believe how wonderful I feel here with you." She gasped when I thrust into her harder. Jesus, and to think I almost turned the old biddy down. Fuck me, Jack. The eternity of foreplay and the leisurely suck had me nearly on edge. Being inside of her and having her so complete was just too much to bear. I pounded into her as hard as I could from our position. "I'm so close," I groaned. "Come in me. Let me feel it come from me, Jack. I want to feel you come inside of me," she whispered into my ear. It set me off, and I filled her, erupting powerfully, thrusting up hard and lifting her hips with each needful burst. Gasping, I slowed to a halt, holding her tightly in my arms. "Amazing," I told her, turning her chin up so I could kiss her softly. She slid off my body to the side, holding me close, her leg over mine, her wetness pressing into my thigh. I felt a breeze and pulled the covers over us. They'd somehow ended up almost completely off, barely covering us from the knees down. I looked over at the open doorway. Damn, I'd have to fix that. What if Bev had been up and about? In the middle of the night, I found myself half awake and fully aroused. Her hands were cool and soft, barely touching me. But my response was anything but cool. I felt a burning fire in my loins and groaned while she got me off. So intense, so powerful, after what we'd been through earlier. I moaned my pleasure and thanked her softly before drifting back to sleep. That's where we're going to stop tonight.
Oh.
No
No
way,
way,
man.
Just as it gets good?
Damn.
No.
Just
No
as it
way.
gets
I
good.
hate
Something
you.
like that.
Blue ball.
Nah.
Listen, I was late. Does anyone else have some
Okay.
notes here? I was taking
I'm
notes, but
sad.
I didn't get too many here.
Are you
Actually,
sure
I'm
this
gonna
isn't
cry.
Titanic?
I thought it was Titanic.
Outside.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I was
actually gonna
thinking
go
too.
cry.
I like that Titanic.
It's gotta happen.
Man, you're breaking my balls here.
It's gotta happen.
No.
We gotta We gotta pace.
Well, I tried comparing notes with Morelli here, but he